Court Storming with your host, Perry Sook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Court Storming, Episode 3. And may I be the first to wish you a very happy feast week. It should be a feast with friends and family and everything for turkey and, of course, some great college basketball. St. John's headed to Vegas for the Players Era Festival, and that is sure to be a good one. But first, an appetizer back here at home at Connelly Arena against Bucknell. Well, what were they serving up? A 48-point win, the largest margin of victory for Rick Pitino and the Red Storms during his tenure. Now, a fourth different starting combination with Darling, Sannon, Sellers, Hopkins, and Zuby in those starting roles. But as Rick has said all season and even mentioned again post-game, it doesn't matter who the starters is, and this game, that could not have been more true because just 3 minutes and 14 seconds into this one, they were pulled when the Johnnies trailing 8-2, and after that, it was all Red Storm as they go on for a massive win over Bucknell to set them up on a high note for their trip to Vegas. We are joined now by a very special guest, someone who was sitting courtside at the Bucknell game and every game at Connelly Arena. We have Storm the Paint's Kevin Connelly. Kevin, thank you so much for the time today.
Thanks for having me. Very glad to be here.
Of course. I'll try not to take too much. Now, Kevin, it looks like you're out in Vegas. Boots on the ground for us already. We appreciate that. How's the Johnny representation out there in Sin City?
Listen, it looks good so far. There were St. John's fans on my flight out here on Sunday morning. I know there's some more probably coming on Monday. There were more out here that came on Saturday. St. John's had a great representation of fans over the past couple of seasons in these multi-team Thanksgiving week events. 2 years ago, Rick Pitino's first year down in the Charleston Classic, St. John's, I believe, was like the second most represented fan base down there. And then last year, obviously, in the Bahamas at the Baha Mar Hoops Challenge, everybody knows how many St. John's fans packed out that arena for both games. So expecting more of the same here in Vegas this week from the Red Storm faithful.
Yeah, some phenomenal places to play. If you tell me I got a chance to go to the Bahamas or Vegas for some basketball, I think I'm signing up for that. So one reason I think, the crowd's behind this is some of this offensive firepower. Here we are, 4 games into the season, 4 90-plus point performances. First time in program history to start a season that high. What for you is working? What for you is behind? I mean, we've got scores all over the place. We had 5 different players in double figures during the last game. That's not the first time this has happened. What for you stands out about the offensive start for this team?
Recently, I think it's role allocation. And coming into this season, people had some questions about what the St. John's offense was going to look like, primarily around the point guard position. And when you talk in April and May, it was Ian Jackson, an unproven point guard who had never really played the position. Then fast forward to the summer, and Rick Pitino says, well, we don't have to play with a point guard. It's going to be positionless basketball. He thought the point guard was a dying breed to an extent. And a lot of people kind of saw through that and didn't necessarily believe it. Fast forward to the fall, and it's Isaiah Sellers, and we see an inter-squad scrimmage in Madison Square Garden. He looks phenomenal. It's a blowout victory for then the starting team. And now fast forward to after the Alabama game where Dylan Darling did not play, he becomes the starting point guard against William and Mary, and the offense has kind of taken off since then. Isaiah Sellers moves to his natural position of shooting guard. He makes 3 3-pointers in that William and Mary game. And then against Bucknell, the starters didn't have it. But St. John's is such a deep and talented team. They get a full line change after 3 minutes. The reserves come in. They provide some energy. They provide some scoring. And Perry, as you mentioned, they take off from there with nearly a 50-point win.
Yeah, the depth of this team. Rick says it all the time. I've got 10 guys. I could put any of them out there at any given time, and I'm going to feel comfortable. And when you think of guys who even last year were a little further down the depth chart, like a Ruben Prey, one of the 4 returning players who comes out, and I mean, he has 14 points in 17 minutes and goes 2 for 3 from the 3-point line. It really adds up to being able to generate these points. One starter does have a good game, and you'll see some of his highlights in between us, is Bryce Hopkins. Led the team tying 20 points, 7 for 9 shooting, 3 of 4 from threes. And I got to tell you, I'm happy to see the threes falling. It's something especially during Arkansas last year, was clawing at, because Rick will even tell you the three-pointer is the great equalizer, because talent can lose to a three-point team that's hot. And so to have some of those gave me some comfortability watching this team, knowing that that potential is there. The volume has gone up significantly from those first two games. Is that a trend you see continuing with this team?
100%. I think you want to start first with Bryce Hopkins because, as you mentioned, he did get hot from three in that Bucknell game, and teams are going to give him the three-point shot because his percentages weren't necessarily great at his previous stops of Kentucky and Providence, and then coming off the injury. And people know Zuby Ejiofor is lurking down low and what he can be on the offensive glass. So people are going to give Bryce Hopkins a three-point range or the three-point shot. It's going to be a pick your poison. And the fact that he's able to knock him down against Bucknell, you hope serves him with a little more confidence going forward. And then, as you mentioned, with Ruben Prey, I think he's the forgotten man in this front court because you do have Ejiofor and Hopkins and Mitchell, who I'm sure we'll get into in a little bit. And then it's like, oh, you have a sophomore in Ruben Prey who is a great defender, who is becoming more confident offensively, especially with his three-point shot, and is becoming a very versatile piece off the bench that Rick Pitino can use at various points in a game.
And certainly for Ruben, especially bringing that physicality. I mean, some of these European players come in, don't necessarily want to have that, and he has been coached up to that and is maybe amongst the most physical players they have. Speaking of that, Rick, with some compliments post-game for not just his team, but just the level of all college basketball right now. Let's go ahead and take a listen to Rick Pitino's thoughts on the state of basketball.
I am so impressed with college basketball, more so than I've ever been in my coaching career, in terms of execution and talent. The influx of foreign players not going to the pros, and I'm talking about Division I pro teams in Europe, because they get paid more money here, has made our game so much stronger. Other players staying in college has made the game so much stronger. They're very experienced players. So I think college basketball right now, from an execution talent standpoint, is at its zenith. I don't think you could get any better.
Yeah, just some kind words there from Rick, and I think it does point to the offensive firepower that they have. Speaking of offensive firepower, we had a guy coming off the bench named Ian Jackson, who I think got kind of a rough beat coming into this year with the expectations. I mean, McDonald's All-American, Bronx kid, goes to UNC, one of the legendary programs, and then comes in, against Bucknell, his best game as a Johnny by far. What stood out to you about his performance?
That he was playing free. Like, it didn't seem like anything was on his mind. Now, after the game, a lot of people talked about he didn't have a turnover. I guess there was one play, I think it was somewhere in the first half, where he could have been credited with a turnover. He wasn't, so he ends the game with 0 turnovers. But the more important than the turnovers, in my opinion, was he was just out there playing basketball. He wasn't overthinking things. And I think when you're a young player coming into Rick Pitino's system and Rick Pitino's program, things can be overwhelming. The demand that he asks for from his players, the execution that he expects from his players, it can be a lot. And especially a guy like Ian Jackson, who hasn't explicitly said he really wasn't coached that hard last year at North Carolina, but it's kind of been inferred from multiple different people that you talk to throughout this early part of the season. So it's another learning curve for him. And I don't think any favors were done towards him of naming him the starting point guard when he committed to St. John's and saying he was going to be the next great point guard, considering he never played the position before. And I think that also probably weighed on his mind throughout the summer and into the early fall. But now that he is not going to be the point guard and he's going to do what he does best, and that is scoring the ball, I mean, sometimes he will make a move in the open court that even some of the best defenders in the country can't defend. He's that gifted of a scorer. For him, it's going to be the other things. It's going to be impacting the game other ways, in passing, in rebounding, and especially defending. If he can put those together with his scoring, the sky's the limit for a guy like Ian Jackson.
Yeah, the 0 turnovers, but maybe a half turnover. But the stat sheet said 0, so I'll give it to him. I was impressed by that because Rick has mentioned multiple times that Jackson has this tendency to what he calls the careless turnover, to the extent that Rick even told him, hey, you see, we're wearing this color, they're wearing that color. Don't throw it to the guys in that color. That seems coachable. Are you confident his defense can come along and reach that level of what St. John's needs it to be?
Yes. I don't think he's going to turn into Kadari Richmond as a defender overnight. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen. But when you look at a guy with his size and his athleticism and his pure God-given basketball gifts, yes, he can absolutely become a solid defensive player. And he's got the right men teaching him how to become a good defensive player this year at St. John's and Rick Pitino.
Yeah, Rick Pitino, obviously a developmental coach, a coach that is not going to coach you hard. I loved the story that came out this week on the Roommates podcast about him talking to Donovan Mitchell and bringing him in and being like, hey, your shot's broken. Here's how I'd fix it. And then at dinner that night, he goes to the bathroom and commits to Louisville for Rick Pitino. Jackson, on the other hand, even though coming off the bench, seemingly really enjoying his role right now, this is what he had to say after the game on his confidence after that Bucknell game.
I think my confidence was at an all-time high. Through the first few games we've had, I've remained the same confidence. I think tonight I played a good game. There's always things to improve on, but I think tonight was great. It's about getting better every day, listening to coach, taking feedback, and just trying to implement what I'm being told. So I think tonight, no turnovers, 3 assists was something that me and coach was big on. And to get it done, it feels good.
Yeah, it should feel good. I mean, when you have a game like that for your school, the expectations we've already talked about. Now Jackson used, as Rick, using a 3-guard lineup. 3 guards and 2 bigs rather than the reverse. Did you like that? It seemed to be working on the floor. They seemed to run it a little more than they had in previous games. How did you feel about that?
I certainly liked it, and I think it has a lot of potential for this team going forward. And that's not to say I still think they're going to use the 3 big lineup at certain points with Mitchell, Hopkins, and Zuby. But the fact that you have guards that you can use and trust out there on the floor, and it's going to be matchup dependent. It's going to be sometimes you're going to need more 3-guard lineups against teams, and sometimes you're going to need more 3 big lineups against teams. But the fact that you have confidence in the 3-guard lineup, that you can use it really whenever you want, I think that's a big thing going forward.
I would agree. The versatility of this team, I think, is where they're going to find their strength. Rick Pitino's teams always get better as the year goes on, and as these guys play together, they'll be able to have those matchup-specific assignments because all of them will feel capable of playing with each other with that versatility. Speaking of versatility, there is a man who did just about everything against Bucknell. Rick Pitino calling it a demonic performance, and that is Dillon Mitchell. What a breakout game for him. I know he had his big game against Quinnipiac, but then kind of disappeared off the stat sheet a little bit for the next 2 games, and then comes back with a vengeance. What did you see, and what did you like about Dillon Mitchell's performance against Bucknell?
Well, there was nobody on Bucknell that could match up with Dillon Mitchell. I mean, St. John's was just vastly superior from a talent perspective than the Bison. But watching Dillon Mitchell in this game, because of that talent discrepancy, it was almost like watching, everyone's done it, played in the schoolyard or in the driveway or on a Nerf hoop in your house with your little cousins. And you're just stealing the ball away from them. You're blocking their shots. You're dunking all over them. That's what it was like, except this was a Division I men's college basketball game. I mean, this play right here is as impressive as a play you can make. You get the rebound, you go 94 feet, an inside-out dribble, and you're dunking the basketball on the other end. Dillon Mitchell is a NBA athlete. The biggest thing for him, and the reason he's not in the NBA right now, is his shot. If Dillon Mitchell can refine his shot and continue at this rate of being a great defender and being a great athlete, he could have a 15-year NBA career. That's just the type of athlete and pure basketball player he is.
Yeah, and stuffing the stat sheet, 10 points, 11 boards, 1 assist, 4 steals, 3 blocks, and really that defensive spark that I think led to, some of those 40-odd deflections that Rick said were unheard of. And also, what a big week for him. In the same year, it seems very obvious that he's going to be coming off the bench because Rick says that, well, he could be the sixth man of the year. That would seem that you're a bench player. He is also named a captain, co-captain, along with Zubi Ejiofor and Sadiku Ibanayo. What a great week for him. He also had some words to say after the game about what he was willing to do for this team. So let's go ahead and take a listen to Dylan.
Whatever it takes to get our team going, to get our team, in the right direction and come out with the right energy. I think when we come out each game with the right energy and the right effort and focus, the game plan and stuff like that, I think we're an extremely good team.
Extremely good is what we aim for here on Court Storming. And part of that is the defense that they can provide. When we come back, we are going to dive into that defense and what is ahead in Vegas. So stick with us. We'll be right back on Court Storming.
Welcome back to Court Storming with Perry Sook.
Welcome back, everybody, to Court Storming. As we said, we are diving into this defense. Defense wins championships, as they like to say. And St. John's, it has been a work in progress for them, but one we can support as they continue to get better. Let's welcome back our friend from Storm the Paint, Kevin Connelly. So, Kevin, we're talking D. How are we feeling about it? Rick keeps saying it's a mission in process. He keeps saying it's the most coachable thing, but there's not a lot of time to get ready with the way he set up the schedule. How are we feeling about the St. John's defense?
Listen, I think they have potential, right? Are they going to be last year's defensive team? No. And I think it's unfair to this group to hold them to that standard because it wasn't an all-time defensive team, but in St. John's history it was. And it was still one of the best defensive teams in the country. Now, you have players that can guard multiple positions. We talked about Dylan Mitchell, Ruben Frey as well, Zubi Ejiofor. If he gets switched out onto a guard, he can certainly hold his own. So there are pieces there defensively. It's just teaching the young guys. And Ian Jackson is still a sophomore. Josan Sanin is still a sophomore. Yes, there are these massive high expectations for these guys, but you still have to remember these are still guys that are just in their second year of college basketball, and they're still learning the ropes, especially on the defensive side of the floor.
Yeah, Rick, not shy about saying that. Not only that they've got some younger guys, but that they have guys that are new to each other. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Rick had to say about his defense and their growing process.
I think our basketball team, very similar to quite a few other teams I've witnessed like Kentucky, needs time to develop. When you have 4 new starters, it takes time. I think we're going to get better and better and better and better. We're not there yet because we have 4 new players. We're a deep team with a great attitude. We're not going to get, if we go 3-0, we're not going to embrace it. If we go 2-1, we're not going to be disappointed. We're just going to play and get better, because we have 4 new starters.
Obviously, a little foreshadowing there to Vegas. And look, Kevin, I know it was against Bucknell, but when you look at the second half in that game, 18% field goal shooting, 11 minutes and 24 seconds holding them scoreless, 15 steals. That's the first time St. John's has averaged had 15 steals since November of 2021. That's quite some time ago, and 24 turnovers, turning in to 36 points. I think the pieces are there. Do you have any worries that the pieces aren't there, or is it certainly just a time thing?
No, it's a time thing. They have the pieces. I mean, you can see the length of a guy like Josan Sanin and Ian Jackson. Now, I will say, like, Dylan Darling is gritty. He'll stick his nose in anything. He's not going to be afraid of defending anybody, but he is at a height disadvantage, a size disadvantage. Osiah Sellers is a guy I know they want to get better defensively. He is a pure offensive player and a three-point weapon. So I think those are the 2 players that Dylan Darling is as tough gets, but he is just at a size disadvantage on the defensive side of the floor, but he's not going to back down. And Osiah Sellers is a guy they want to get a little bit better and stop fouling, which he has done a better job at since those exhibition games.
Yeah, I will tell you one of my favorite things to watch of anything, all the highlight dunks, all the deep threes, any of that is Dylan Darling taking a charge. It brings a smile to my heart every single time. Tough as nails, as Coach says. We're big fans of Dylan Darling here on Court Storming, so I will be in full support of him. So here's the question: you already had Alabama, you've already got this very difficult early season schedule, and now you're headed to the Players era with a ranked matchup against Iowa State, right into a game with Baylor, and then who knows what else is next. Does this team have enough time? Is this team going to be able to weather the storm, for lack of a better word?
I think they are. I have high expectations for them in these next 3 games here in Vegas, against Iowa State, against Baylor, and then against whomever they get in that 3rd game. This is a team that was right there with a chance to beat Alabama. This is a team that scored 90 some odd points. They were right there with a chance to beat the Crimson Tide. So I know a lot of stock gets put in that game and in that result, but a couple of things bounce their way. They win that game, and there's a completely different conversation we're having. And granted, Alabama is a super gifted offensive team, and they've played together for the last 2 seasons for the most part. So I do have very high expectations for this team coming into this tournament in Vegas.
Speaking of this tournament, it looks a little weird because there's no brackets. You got your 2 teams ahead of you, and then I know there's been a recent format change. Your boots on the ground for us. Can you kind of explain what we're getting into there in Vegas?
Yeah. I'm going to try my best, Perry. I'm going to try my best. So the format that I had written a story about, which I was told is how this event was going to operate, out the window. Okay. So the whole new format is there are 18 teams in this event. And they're in pods, but the pods don't matter. Every team is guaranteed 3 games, and your opponent for the first 2 games. After those first 2 games, all 18 teams are going to be seeded based on their record, and then if your record is tied, it's a head-to-head matchup as a tiebreaker. Point differential is a tiebreaker. Points scored, points allowed, those are all tiebreakers. The top 4 teams, regardless of what arena they played in, are going to advance to the 3rd place and championship games. Everybody else will play a consolation game with the team seated directly below them. So like the 5th seeded team will play the 6th seeded team, 7th seeded team plays the 8th seeded team, so on and so on.
What we do know, obviously, is that the next 2 games, Iowa State and Baylor, 2 Big 12 opponents. As you know, Dylan Mitchell transferring in after playing at a SEC school that was a Big 12 school and then another Big 12 school. And he had some pointers to share with his team about what it's like to play those teams. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
2 great Big 12 teams. I've been playing in Big 12 for the past 3 years. I can't get away from Big 12 games. I just can't. So I know what it's like playing Iowa State and Baylor, and they're 2 tough teams. So next up is Iowa State, and I'll be able to tell the guys about how they play, and they're very physical, and they're a big team. Been playing there for the past 3 years. So.
And what we do know is those 2 games, and regardless of what else happens or point differential or anything, you go out and win those. That is making a statement. How do you think this team fares against the unbeaten Cyclones?
Listen, Iowa State has a great player in Lipsy. I mean, he is fantastic. But I don't know how to judge this Cyclones team. I just don't, because their one marquee game, the neutral site game against Mississippi State, they blew them out, but Mississippi State then goes into one of their MTEs and doesn't look good at all. They lose against Kansas State. They lose against New Mexico. So now my perception of Mississippi State is a team that's not very good. And now you turn around and say that Iowa State game, well, Iowa State might have beaten a not so great team. So I really don't know how to get a judge of this Iowa State team. I know historically they are tough as nails. They're similar to Houston in that regard, although maybe not as consistently talented as the Cougars. I think St. John's is going to match up really well against them. I really do. And the same can be said with Baylor, who is not as strong as they have been in previous years. I know some people will disagree with me. I know that people out here in Vegas have Iowa State as a small favorite entering Monday's game. But I lean to the fact that I can see St. John's winning both of these pool play games, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, regardless, whatever it is, it's great experience. As we know, Rick engineering the entire schedule so that the team doesn't show up to March and see something they haven't seen. Rick had some of his own takes about what this Vegas experience is going to be like, so let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
I think Iowa State, Houston, Iowa State are as difficult to play against as any teams in basketball. Their defense, their rebounding is relentless. They're very physical, so it's great for us to play against this type of competition. You have all of who's who in basketball. This is 18 great teams, and we got one of the tougher teams in the first matchup, so we're looking forward to the challenge.
Yeah, a challenge indeed coming their way, and the best part about it, we don't have to wait till Thursday or Saturday. It's coming right our way tomorrow or today if you're watching this when it reruns at noon. The game is happening soon. Guys, Kevin, thank you so much for taking time. Go hit the slots, go enjoy yourself, and thank you for joining us tonight on Court Storming.
Thanks for having me, Perry. Glad to be here.
Of course. And guys, that will do it for this episode of Court Storming. Hopefully, we are coming back with a very happy Vegas celebration party with whatever they end up playing in the third game and celebrating that. Remember, that episode will air on Monday instead of Sunday because, guys, it's Thanksgiving in Vegas. We got to take some time. So thank you guys for watching Court Storming and happy holidays.